So today's podcast is on facial neoplasms part 1. These are the features of non-pigmented actinic keratoses: keratin scales, which are white to yellow surface scale, erythema revealing a marked pink to red pseudonetwork surrounding the prominent white projected areas, fine linear wavy vessels interposed between the prominent white projected areas, hair follicle openings filled with yellowish keratonic plugs and are surrounded by a white halo, targetoid-like appearance, rosette sign, accentuation of the sebaceous glands, and the absence of fissures, ridges, crypts, and milia-like cysts. Here we have this clinical picture of an actinic keratosis as well as the dermoscopy image. And these are the features with this dermoscopy image. These fine linear wavy vessels interposed between the prominent white projected areas. This has also been called a pink to red pseudo-network surrounding the prominent white projected areas. Now in the intra-ultraviolet mode, the dark areas correspond to the blood vessels surrounding the white round structures, and in the center is a dark area which is keratin filling the follicular openings. Another actinic keratosis, you can see clinically the fine scale, and dermoscopically we see rosettes as well as these white projected areas. For this actinic keratosis, subtle lesion, dermoscopically we have this targetoid-like appearance, these hair follicle openings filled with yellowish keratonic plugs, and these white projected areas with this fine linear wavy vessels. Another lesion, and the most prominent dermoscopic features are the rosettes, the white projected areas, and the red pseudo-network. What about the features of pigmented actinic keratoses? These include a clinical or dermatoscopic scale, an annular pattern, moth-eaten borders, gray dots granules, a red pseudo-network, white circles also known as evident follicles, rosettes, and pigment interposed between the white circles. So in this particular lesion, we see the fine scale clinically. Dermoscopically, we have rosettes, evident follicles, a red to reddish brown pseudo-network, pigment interposed between the white circles, and these fine linear wavy vessels. And with this pigmented actinic keratosis, you have some scallop borders, fine lines slightly curved. This is the solar lentigo component, and the white projected areas. With this pigmented actinic keratosis, you have this red-brown pseudo-network with white circles and scallop borders. What are the key features for squamous cell carcinoma in situ? They are vessels as dots or coils, scale, and heme or blood spots. So with this particular lesion, we can see vessels as coils, particularly nicely with the vascular enhancer, as well as it's seen quite nicely in the near ultraviolet light mode. What about invasive squamous cell carcinomas? Well, these are all the features that can be seen: vessels as dots or coils, white circles with a central yellow plug, also known as the keratin pearls, diffuse irregular or peripheral vessel arrangements, greater than 50% usually are poorly differentiated squamous cell carcinomas. In contrast, when there's a central scale distribution, we see these with well-differentiated squamous cells and keratoid xanthomas. We also can get heme or blood spots, keratin, thickened white anastomosing lines, as well as white ovoid structures. So for this particular lesion, in the dermoscopy mode, we see this scale surrounded by this pinkish white area. Now, in the CASIO software, there are functions which enable the enhancement of structures. And we can see quite prominently with this enhancement, this prominent thickened scale, as well as accentuated follicular openings filled with keratin. In this squamous cell carcinoma, we have heme or blood spots, a vascular blush, white ovoid structures, and this irregular or peripheral vessel arrangement. Now this is in the near ultraviolet mode. You can see as well in the near ultraviolet light mode with the vascular enhancer. And you can see how prominent it is with the vascular enhancer. Some of the features that we see include heme or blood spots. These are regular or peripheral vessel arrangement. We see these white ovoid structures as well as these more prominent irregular peripheral vessel arrangements in other areas as well. And this is with the structural enhancer. So we see these white large areas as well as quite prominently the irregular or peripheral vessel arrangement. With this invasive squamous cell carcinoma, we have diffuse irregular vessel arrangement, as well as this peripheral scale crust. And with the structural enhancer, we see it quite prominently. And this would be very characteristic of a poorly differentiated squamous cell carcinoma. With this squamous cell carcinoma, in the polarized mode, we see these circles with the white peripheral rim and tan orange center, which are the keratin pearls. And we can see these quite nicely as well in the near ultraviolet light mode. Dermoscopic features associated with pigmented squamous cell carcinoma include vessels appearing as red dots, vessels coiled, a linear arrangement of vessels, brown or gray dots, brown circles, or brown oval structures often in a linear arrangement, structureless zones, and bright white shiny structures also known as crystalline structures. So in this pigmented squamous cell carcinoma in situ, with dermoscopy we see these brown dots in a linear configuration. And here we see with the vascular enhancer, the brown dots are now red dots in a linear configuration. And perhaps the pigment obscures the underlying vessels. And here in the near ultraviolet light mode, again, we see these dots in a linear configuration, and they're more prominently seen with the vascular enhancer, where they now turn red. This is with the structural enhancer, where we see brown dots and round structures in a linear configuration. And here we see histologically this full thickness keratinocyte atypia characterized by pigment at the base, very characteristic of a pigmented squamous cell carcinoma in situ. In this pigmented squamous cell carcinoma in situ, dermoscopically we see red dots in a linear arrangement pattern and brown dots in a linear arrangement pattern. And here with the vascular enhancer, you can see the vessels as red dots more prominently, and you can see these brown dots in round structures with the structural enhancer. Features of sebaceous hyperplasia: yellow to yellow-white lobular structures, the so-called popcorn structures, linear winding vessels, serpentine radial vessels predominantly at the periphery of the lesion, known as wreath vessels or crown vessels. In this case, with the vascular enhancer, you see the beautiful serpentine radial vessels, and in the center area you see the yellow-white oval structures, also known as popcorn structures. And this is with the structural enhancer. Another case showing the beautiful yellow-white oval structures with the serpentine radial vessels at the periphery. Thank you for your attention.